Life's a coat of many colors. It is never black and white. Can't have one without the other. The dark without the light. In the summer we were lovers. With the flame our hearts would burn, a flame the autumn would smother, and leave this heart to yearn forever blue, forever blue. I'm putting on the show.
This is Guardian Speak. I'm Cassandra Davies.
And I'm Debbie Bratby.
And together we are your hosts.
We thought you might enjoy getting to know us a little better. So we're presenting our resume on who we are professionally and our background so that you know that we have some credibility and know what we're talking about.
Thank you. That's it exactly.
Thank you.
So Debbie, why don't you go first and tell us a little about yourself?
Well, professionally, I began a career in the United States Air Force. And I was lucky enough to serve in Europe at Ramstein Air Base, which was awesome, in Germany. After that, I spent 2 years there, and then I came back to the States and was transferred out to Beale Air Force Base in California, which is not what it seemed at the time. It seemed like palm trees and beaches, except Beale Air Force Base is in the desert, which I didn't realize there was desert in California. I thought it was all palm trees and beaches.
A little
surprise,
did you know.
Surprise, 110.
Little did you know.
Yeah. So when I, right before I was getting ready to get out, the CHP came and had a little job fair, and I signed up because I was getting ready to get out. And they were pushing women at the time, and I was lucky enough to be chosen to be in the next upcoming class. The problem was I still had 6 months left of my career in the Air Force. So my commander on the base happened to love the Highway Patrol. And so Highway Patrol called him and said, hey, we want her out. You know, we need her next week. And that's 1 week to get out of the Air Force. So he did it. He gave me a letter, and I got out on a Friday, and I went to the Highway Patrol Academy on Monday.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, what did you do in the Air Force? Was it related to law enforcement at all?
No, it was absolutely not related to Air Force at all. It was liquid fuels maintenance specialist, which is a glorified gas pump fixer. Basically, we cleaned fuel systems. But what I really did most of the time was I played softball for the Air Force in Europe.
That's awesome.
Pretty cushy job. They don't have that anymore because it's kind of like a wartime. But at the time, it was not wartime, and I made the best of it. It was a lot of fun. And so when I got out and went into the Highway Patrol, the Highway Patrol Academy is a 6-month academy that you live in Sacramento.
Yeah.
So they break you down, and then they reform you in their image.
Just like the military.
It is a paramilitary institution, which most police departments are.
Yeah.
So went to Hayward from there and spent 5 years, I believe, in Hayward, and transferred down to San Jose. And from there, I went to Santa Cruz, where I ended up retiring after a 23-year career. 23
years. Oh,
yes.
Wow. Okay, that's awesome.
Yes, it was awesome. I was lucky enough to participate in various roles in the Highway Patrol. Now, I know the chips show hang gliding and all this craziness.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I didn't do any hang gliding, but I did have a classmate who is still working on the helicopter, who is the EMT on the helicopter. And I can't remember what area.
That's great, though.
Yeah, but I don't think I would have been okay on that because I get a little motion sickness. So I stuck to the patrol car. And there were other female officers who were really good friends of mine who were motor officers riding a motorcycle.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I would have loved that one.
Yeah, I thought that too until I fell down on a motorcycle. And then I thought you have to be a certain kind of animal to ride a motorcycle for a police department. You really do. You have to have no fear whatsoever.
Yeah, and be really well skilled with handling a motorcycle.
Right. And those things are heavy. I mean, just picking it up after it falls down
Yeah.
It's
Some men can't do it
yeah.
without help.
So when I was in the highway patrol, I participated in many roles, and I'll just go over a list of them. And I want people to know that the reason why I'm telling you this is not to toot my horn and say, wow, look how awesome I was. I just want you to know I have credibility. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. You have a lot of experience, and experience is very valuable.
Right. And so this is my resume I'm putting out to the public, so you all know, I'm legit.
Yeah.
Know? So I was on the speed team in Hayward, which meant we wrote about 20 speeding tickets a day. And that's all we did. We didn't respond to accidents or anything like that. So that really gave me an ability to make traffic stops. I don't want to say routine, because there's no such thing as a routine traffic stop, but I got very comfortable with knowing when something wasn't quite right, when I started getting in the hackles up, and when this is just a ticket, and it wasn't going to go anywhere. So it was really good experience for me. So I did that for 3 years that I was there. I was the field training officer for most of my career, for 15 years. I was shift supervisor often, officer in charge.
Yeah.
I was for 2 years the accident review officer in Santa Cruz. I was the squad club president. I was the court officer. And then in 2006, I was lucky enough to be elected as the officer of the year for my area in Santa Cruz, which was
awesome.
Was the highlight of my career, was being chosen by my peers as the officer of the year.
Yeah.
So that's my little feather in my cap.
Who wouldn't want that feather in their cap? That's great.
Yeah. So that's basically my my resume. Now, when I retired in 2010, it took a couple years to struggle and find myself, which is a whole other story. But in 2013, I participated in the Impact Program, which is a program of through Interlight Ministries of going into the prisons for a program to help the inmates find themselves. And that participating in that program completely transformed my life. And at some point we can go into depth about that. But that's basically my resume in a nutshell.
That's great.
So do you have any questions?
Yeah. Well, the thing about it is the Impact Program is where we met.
That's correct.
Yeah. So during that time, as a doing, like, say, on the speed team, you had to really know how to trust your gut.
Yes.
Yeah. Were there any times that it was clear to you, had you not trusted your gut, you could have been in a lot of trouble?
It's off the top of my head, I can't think of any, but I, just by sheer the fact that I'm here and wasn't involved in any real, I was involved in a couple of fights and attacks, but I was able to just kind of have that sense. It starts to just come upon you. You just know. And I think people in general have that intuition.
Yeah.
And oftentimes they're just so out of tune with it that they don't follow it. But I think police officers start to hone in on that.
Yeah, I think so.
And so I think without consciously knowing that I did it, I'm sure there were many times where my unconscious brain took over and I was able to observe something that I might not have, I might have missed.
Yeah. I started off with doing military type stuff in high school. I took junior ROTC classes, and the courses was run and taught by Marine Corps instructors.
Hoorah.
Hoorah. So I started learning a lot of the leadership principles. My teacher was awesome. He was a Vietnam Korean War veteran, and he was a master sergeant. And he just gave us the greatest leadership background, like foundation, that I think a person could want to have, anyone who's going to be leading and managing people. So after high school, I went to junior college, and then I transferred to a four-year college where I continued ROTC with the hopes of becoming a career officer in the Army. And I did well with the courses up there. I was the first Black battalion commander, the second female battalion commander. I won a national ROTC cadet award. So what's the George C. Marshall Award, where they took the highest, the outstanding cadets all around the country, and they flew us out to Virginia Military Institute, and we got to attend a week-long conference with a lot of the military's best leaders.
Wow.
That was pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I got an early commission because I completed all of the requirements early. So I was commissioned an officer, second lieutenant, early before I had an opportunity to finish my degree. And 6 months later, my dad died. Yeah. And he was a large contributor to my college fund and my expenses. So I had to find a way to make money really fast. And the ideas that I came up with involved going into a unit, a reserve unit, going to officer basic training, applying for a scholarship, which they said I couldn't have because I was already commissioned. And every idea that I came up was, no, you can't because of this, or no, you can't because of that. And my last ditch effort was basically a plea for, can you help me? Is there anything you can do to help me? And the answer was just no. And so I was like, okay, then I'm going to go home and I'm going to help out my mom and I'm going to start work. And so that's what I did. And getting into corrections kind of fell into my lap. I was working as a security guard at Great America, and that was pretty paramilitary. We worked closely with Santa Clara PD, and sometimes we would back them up on arrests that they were making, or if we detained somebody, we would call them in. One thing that was really exciting was that we actually did a stakeout for a burglar and chased him down and caught him. It was pretty exciting. The county created a new department of Corrections to kind of relieve the sheriff's office of some of its burden of working the jails. And a lot of deputies weren't happy that happened. So there was a lot of political strife going into the job from the start, and a lot of stress. I was in the second academy, so the second group of 50 people to start work. And a lot of that animosity continued for like 5 to 7 academies after. And a lot of us experienced a lot of stuff.
Did sheriffs just didn't want to let go of the corrections, or what was the biggest beef?
They just didn't want us there. They felt like we were trying to take their jobs, which we couldn't because we didn't have powers to go out into the street. When the sheriffs started, usually their first 2 to 3 years, they worked in the jails. So a lot of them were being freed up to not have to work the jail. But the ones who apparently wanted to stay in the jail, they hated us. And there weren't all. There were a lot of officers or a lot of deputies that were really helpful with training us and stuff. But there were those few who made no bones about it. We don't want you here. We don't like you, whatever.
Well, that's a nice work environment.
Yeah, it was lovely. So there was a lot of political strife on the job. But however, I still managed to do a lot. My first year, I worked at the women's facility. When they opened up the main jail, they opened a new mental health unit on the 8th floor. So I applied to transfer there, and I worked there for about 2 years. During that time, the Loma Prieta earthquake happened, and I was on the 8th floor when that happened. That was a lot of fun. I worked as what you would call a work out of class sergeant, which is a temporary assignment until they could come up with hiring practices to hire new sergeants in the corrections department.
So that'd be like a shift supervisor.
Yeah. I managed the team of 40 to 60 people on the team, and help with the work assignments and the work problems that came along with it. And
So a sergeant's job, but not a sergeant's status or pay.
right,
Okay.
I was a training officer, so I trained newly badged officers coming into the jail. I think I did that for another year and a half to 2 years. I also worked as a transportation officer. I got to drive a 40-foot bus.
Oh, that's not fun.
It was for me.
Oh my gosh.
It was. Because my parents had 2 motorhomes. They had a 28-footer and they got a 33-footer. And my dad and I used to do most of the driving when I was, driving up to Idaho to go to school and coming back. So it wasn't just another 7 foot to go from 33 to 40 foot.
Right.
And
yeah.
I wasn't thinking about, I just loved it. I was like, this is cool. And it gave me some variety, get out of the jail. And so we transported inmates to court. We did some transfers to prisons and some pickups. We would drive, and it wasn't always a bus. It could have been a van or a sedan. So we would take the van to go pick up somebody from Folsom Prison, or take somebody up there, or San Quentin, or Soledad, or even Avenal State Prison, which is out in the desert.
Yeah, way down yonder.
Yeah. I got to do a very broad range of jobs, in the DOC.
You had a boot camp assignment?
Mm-hmm. There was a women's boot camp called PRIDE. It was an acronym. It was so long ago, I can't remember what the acronym stood for.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a paramilitary setting. The women were housed in a unit that was specifically for PRIDE. So they had to, pass requirements to be accepted to the program. And that, some of that included no violent offenses, and they had to be of a low enough classification that they could be trusted to be housed in an open base setting.
And how long was that program from beginning to end for the incarcerated women?
I think it may have been 12 weeks.
And when someone is incarcerated in the county judicial system, in the county jail,
yeah,
what's the criteria for staying at the county jail level? Is it 1 year or 364 days? Or
right, it's 1 year or less.
Okay.
So most of the people that are housed at the county jail, they're either being housed for a violation that, like a misdemeanor, doesn't go over a year. So they're mostly, misdemeanor offenses. If anyone is there and they have a felony, which the jail is also a holding facility for people who are going to court, who are returning from prison to attend court, or who are in the process of being held for transfer. So we had every jail has the potential to have some pretty notorious offenders there while they're in court.
Right. Yeah. So they're obviously segregated. You wouldn't have the felony people waiting for a violent crime court date in with these misdemeanor women who basically, not jaywalking, but not a nonviolent crime.
Right. Yeah.
So they were segregated, of course.
They were.
Okay.
Yeah. If they were known to be violent, they were housed accordingly and with a higher classification. And we had women charged with murder or charged with other violent crimes like aggravated assault or what have you.
But they wouldn't be part of the boot camp program, or would they?
They could have, depending on not for murder. If they were in trial for murder, no. They were usually housed in an altogether different area. But say if someone had a battery charge or maybe mutual combat with domestic, or even an aggravated assault, if they had demonstrated through their behavior that they could be in a general population environment, then they fit the rest of the criteria for acceptance, they could do it.
And would you deem the boot camp program successful?
I lobbied to get into that program from the moment I heard about it. And they had, each program was like 13, I think it was between 12 and 16 weeks. I can't even remember because it was so long ago. But the 13th class, which was a cycle, the 13th cycle, I got transferred into work that unit. And for me, that was the most fulfilling part of the job that I'd ever experienced, because it was making a positive difference. I got to be a part of helping someone figure out why they were making the mistakes they made that kept them coming into jail, to help them gain new ways of thinking and perceiving, from where they got their responses, so that they could, turn the trajectory of their life around and not keep coming into jail. 'Cause a lot of these, they were just two, young women who were dealing with a lot of stuff. They were dealing with the kind of stuff that I didn't even have an issue with growing up. Like, I didn't know that stuff existed. Like sexual abuse, rape, drugs, alcohol. They just didn't, like, they hadn't had mentors growing up.
Right.
Yeah. So I got to be a part of that, to like be a mentor for somebody. And that was, when I got up for work on those days, I felt like I was just, like, it was effortless.
You couldn't wait to get to work.
I couldn't wait to get to work. And I didn't, but when it was time to come home, I was like, oh, we're done already?
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's what my career looked like.
And
those are the
then
jobs I did.
the program ended.
Then the program ended. So, and then I had to go back into a regular jail environment.
Where you're not treating the issues of these folks, you're treating the symptoms.
Yeah.
Or not even treating anything. You're
not
just
treating anything. You're really just, making sure that the doors are locked and that people are getting fed and there aren't things going on. And it was like going from a well-lit room into the darkness. Like going from the sunshine into a cave, like a deep, dank, smelly cave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then how did you end up not being a corrections officer anymore? What happened?
I had experienced so much stress from the political environment, from it being a hostile environment. A lot of the stuff I saw caused me so much stress that it just it nearly killed me. I had a heart attack. One day I was working out and getting ready to go to work the next day. I was like getting my mind wrapped around, okay, tomorrow's, another day of work. And I was doing my workout and, bam, I started having these symptoms. And because of my first aid training that we had to have, I was able to, like, go down the list, literally. In my head, I was going down the list, checking all the boxes. And, at first it was like, oh, like, what is this? This can't be happening. No way.
Denial.
I'm too young for this. There's no way. And
how old were you when you say you were too young?
I was 35.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's too young.
Yeah. And statistically, it shouldn't even have been happening, because I was a young black female with no history of early heart attack in my family. And so I was statistically the least likely person the doctors would have expected to see come in with a heart attack at 35.
And no, I know what it's, stress. I know what stress can do.
Yeah.
But at the time, did you have any inkling that it was completely related to the stress involved at work?
It was clear. For me, I had been under so much stress and just feeling when somebody, when someone hates you, you can feel it.
Yeah.
And not being able to respond to it because you want to keep your job.
Right.
That's stressful. And knowing that, having that feeling of, if something happens and I have to do something, like not being sure that my administration was going to support me.
Right. So,
Yep.
so I know it's probably a combination of things, but do you think you had the stress coming more from the inmates or from your own administration?
There's no diplomatic way to say that. I'll tell you this. I once had an inmate ask me, why are they treating you so bad?
Oh my gosh.
Can you, I mean, yeah. An inmate asked me that, and I was like, I couldn't even say anything to that because she was right.
Well, it's not uncommon. I mean, it is not uncommon for not just correctional officers, but anyone in law enforcement or even the district attorney's office to have problems with the administration for various reasons of why they aren't supported.
Yeah.
But that's not uncommon at all to that be the highest stress.
Yeah. And I had been associated with people who started the Correctional Officers Union.
Ooh, the nasty union word.
Yeah. Yeah. And there were people that they didn't like it. They were jealous of it. I don't know what their mindset was.
Right.
But I wound up catching a lot of flack. And there was a lot of racial tensions within the department. So I guess I was on the receiving end.
So after all the stress, you have a heart attack, and obviously you can't go back
Right. No.
to work.
Right.
So as after the heart attack, you eventually separated from the department,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
And that kind of led you down the path of the prison outreach program.
Yeah, and it took a while to get me there. I left the department in 1999 after 11 years. And in 2002, Interlight Ministries began a relationship with Pleasant Valley State Prison. They were invited to attend a Muslim Eid celebration, which is it's like the feast after Ramadan, which is the Muslim holy days. And so when the Muslim chaplain at the prison heard Reverend Deborah speak, he said, "Oh, we have to have her here." And so that's how the relationship got started. We started attending those celebrations, and a letter writing campaign started. And I didn't really want to do the letter writing thing, so I backed out of it for like 5 years. And I was still recovering from the heart attack and a lot of the emotional trauma that happens with the job.
Well, plus,
So,
you know, leaving something that you really did care about.
Yeah.
And not on your own terms. Your body told you, you're leaving.
Yeah. Yeah. And being like, okay, my body betrayed me. There's that pain. There's the pain of dealing with having a heart attack and not being able to do the things that as an active person I knew I should have been able to still do. That's rough.
Yeah, well,
Yeah. And then there's, oh, well, now who am I? What do I do now?
right.
Yeah. And what do I do that's going to make a difference for people? In the corporate world, I couldn't see it.
Right.
So when Impact began in like 2007.
And Impact is the prison outreach program
Yeah.
that Interlight Ministries started.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
So I heard about it beginning, and I was still kind of in a place of not knowing what I want to do. And I was working another job. So when I had the opportunity, I was like, look, let me just go check it out. And I think it was Rev Deborah. She said, you won't be writing letters because we're going into the prison now. And we're, it's a workshop setting, and we're interacting with the men, and we're teaching them our tools for living. And so I was like, well, that sounds really cool. I'm going to go see what that's like.
Mm-hmm. And what year was that? When?
I think it was 2007 or 2008. And my first visit out there, I sat in the room in the large circle with 40, 50 inmates. And they were talking about things that really resonated with me as far as things that had helped me. I was seeing these guys engaged in stuff that they could learn to help them transform their lives, to help them with their traumas. Seeing the men engaged in learning the same type of tools that we were taught at Inner Light, and the same type of tools that I was taught in other self-help programs that I'd done on my own. The principles are literally the same. They're just, the wording's different. And when I saw that and saw the demeanor of these men, I was like, okay, this could work. This is something that I can do to where I can make a difference.
Right.
Yeah.
In treating the disease versus the symptoms.
Yeah. Yeah. Find the cause and treat the cause, not the symptom. I think it was like 2 years before I did an actual presentation. The first presentation I taught for myself, so it's like snap, something clicked. As soon as I was done, it was like, this is what I'm here. This is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Oh, what a great feeling.
Yeah.
It feels so good to find
incredible.
your purpose, your meaning.
Yeah.
Like, all my life, all this stuff came to this. Oh, that's what that was about.
Yeah. It's like, now I can see everything that led up to that point was like, it had a reason.
And then this podcast.
And then,
So I'm going to jump ahead a bit. What is it that's making you want to do this podcast? What is it what's your goal, your personal goal?
I want to, one of the connections that I made, and it's just an observation that I have about what happens to people in law enforcement, people who are working with, for me, with corrections, people who are working with holding another human being in a place that's like holding someone down. For me, it was without there being any corrective action, was just abusive. It just felt abusive to me. And so I felt like I was abusing these strangers that look like average human beings. And yeah, there are some that can be mean and nasty, but they weren't being mean and nasty to me, the individual. They were mean and nasty because they were struggling with drug addiction or whatever pain they were in, usually high or drugged out of their minds or withdrawing from something. And in my mind, that didn't make them the scum of the earth. That made them people with a lot of problems. The hardest part about that was having to suppress my own humanity to do the job. Like I ain't got time to listen to your sob story. Get your butt in that cell. Mm-hmm. And just the process itself. Like, I'm sure you've seen booking areas. People are brought in with they have all kinds of questions, especially if they haven't been arrested before, but everybody gets the same treatment. Right. This is the process. Just get your butt in that holding cell. I ain't got time for you. You'll get a phone call later. All that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I've always had this innate, I don't know, just kind of a drive to help people. And that part of it was very difficult for me. So I had to shut off my humanity. And when you shut that off, it kind of sends you down it puts you on a downward spiral.
Right. Well, it's not natural.
No, it's not. And it's really difficult to maintain. The more you maintain it, I think, the more danger it puts you at for depression and all kinds of other issues.
So your aim is to let other people know, first responders in particular, that you understand, for one, you've been there, and two, there's a way out. You don't have to suffer.
Right. You don't have to suffer, because I got to the place where where I could have seen, where I could understand where someone would just not want to be here any longer.
Right.
I got to that place. And a lot of people get to that place
And
from having so much stress on them and trauma and not having a way to alleviate it and not knowing that there's a way to alleviate it.
and some people take the route of alcohol abuse, drug abuse, spousal abuse, sexual behavior that's outside of their relationship, risky behavior, and the ultimate end is the suicide,
Right.
which often all the others are talked about. Not so much the sex, but that's there, and that's a whole nother issue. But the all the others are almost acceptable. Well, he was coping with everything. It's like when you get to suicide, suddenly like, well, they were a coward.
Right. Yeah.
And there's stigma all around that.
So much. And there's stigma around even asking for help.
Right. Or not even, if you're not even at a suicidal place, you just need some help, and someone finds out you're going to a psychiatrist or a therapist.
Yeah.
You have the possibility, a strong possibility, of being ostracized or made fun of.
Yeah.
So, knowing that, often officers or first responders won't go get help because they're afraid someone's going to find out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then now they're isolated in this painful place of, first it's super painful, and now you're isolated.
That isolation is a killer.
Yeah, literally. It's literally a killer.
Literally, it is.
The goal here is to reach out to first responders for not only mental health issues and stress relief,
right,
but also changing the system, the system of corrections. It's not corrections at all. It's lock them up.
Yeah, throw away
a
the
storage
key.
Facility
Yeah.
for criminal behavior,
Right.
versus an actual rehabilitation center.
Yeah.
And also trying to find a better way for policing
Right.
that's community-oriented.
Oriented policing.
And us policing versus us versus them policing.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. We've talked about how much it changed you to go into the prison and interact with the men, and how your preconceptions were changed. That happened for me as well. It surprised me a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't, because at the same time, I had the old reference of working in a jail, and now I'm going into a prison where they're supposed to be bigger and badder and meaner, and I had a little bit of that still with me when I first started working with the Impact program. And it only took like 2 cycles of Impact to see that, wait a minute, as big and bad as these guys may look, they are just as soft and gentle on the inside as me.
And I know a lot of people would say that is just BS.
Yeah, they'd say that's hogwash.
And they're just pulling the wool over your eyes. They're manipulators. And there are some people
There
like
are
that.
some. We've seen, as the years have gone by, we've seen fewer and fewer of those manipulators. And not only that, when they'll tell us, I came in here because all I wanted was a certificate. And what I got was...
Yeah, the inmates would say that too.
Yeah, and they're still saying it. I came in here because all I wanted was a certificate. But you guys have helped me turn my thinking around, turn my mind around, open my mind. And one guy said, and I want to apologize to you for that. Yeah. When you first walked in here, I didn't think you could teach me anything, and I want to apologize for that. It wasn't fair to you.
Yeah. So the goal for me, and I know it's for you too, for this podcast is I want to hear from people too. I want someone to call me on it and say, that's BS. And I want to listen and tell me why.
Yeah.
And that maybe there is a better way to do things.
Yeah.
And why not put it out there? So not only are we a self-help kind of podcast for first responders,
Yeah.
we are also a pedestal,
forum.
a forum to talk about how can we police, and particularly how can we encourage partnerships between not only departments but the community.
The community. Yeah. And for people in corrections, how can I do my job in a more humane way and stay safe?
And still be the authority in
Maintain the authority, maintain the safety, and like not have the stressor of having to be the hard ass all the time.
right.
Yeah. That's, I mean, pardon my French, but that's what makes life really difficult, is having to muster up that hard shell all the time.
And not be a human being with emotions.
Yeah.
And is there a time to be stoic? And yeah, is there a time to hold back your emotions? Of course there is.
Yeah.
But you have to let them go at some point. You can't be suppressed over and over again. I have no degrees
Yeah.
in psychology or any kind of therapy degree.
Yeah.
However, I have lived through it. I have witnessed other people going through it. And I want to hear from those people. I want to hear stories of survival. I want to hear
Yes.
somebody's story. It's like, wow, how did you begin with, particularly the chief of police for Santa Cruz Police Department, brand new chief, just came in from Eureka.
Yeah.
And he started his career in San Diego as a beat officer. How did it, and then he becomes the chief of police for Eureka, and then he becomes chief of police for Santa Cruz PD. And he brings these innovative ideas. How does a beat cop, whom I pretty much know what his mindset might have been like, become this innovative person with these great ideas that are outside the box?
Yeah.
That transformation, where did he change his opinion of policing? Because he had to.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I want to hear that story. I want to hear the story of the correctional officer who's actually making a difference, who's doing these kinds of things. And, we don't have to know who you are.
Yeah.
But what are you doing to keep your humanity? How are you keeping yourself sane? How do you not abuse an inmate when your life is just falling apart and you have no control, but the one thing you have control over is the inmate?
Yeah.
How do you keep yourself from doing really bad things?
Right.
Or not really bad things, just demeaning things. And,
Yeah.
well, that's still really bad, but, I don't mean really bad things, but
Yeah. But things that make you regret that you did them. Things
Right.
that leave you feeling regret and, like questioning, did I do the right thing? Did I go overboard?
Right.
I'm embarrassed that I did that or whatever.
yeah.
Whatever it is.
And that's part of our, it's not a creed. What's it called?
Our mission statement?
Our mission statement
Yeah.
is stories of
Yeah.
emotional survival
Right.
and tools of,
Personal stories of transforming the badge.
right. And that's on our
Yeah.
Facebook page. Yeah. So that's who we are. That's why we're doing this.
Because we can relate to all of it.
Right.
I can relate to being that tough, stoic correctional officer, and I can relate to being the sensitive who has to dealt with the pain of suppressing their humanity, and I can also relate to understanding where an inmate may be coming from,
Right.
because some of their stories could be very similar to mine.
Or if situations had been different and you were born into the life that person was born into, you might have the same reaction to events that happened to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's seeing us all. We're all in this together,
Yeah.
and nobody's getting out alive.
Right. Yeah. We're all in the same ocean and we're all on the same boat.
Going down the same drain.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we will be bringing stories, not only resources, but stories from people. How does a widow survive the loss of a spouse who's killed in the line of duty?
Yeah.
how does someone survive when they've lost their legs, not lost, they were
Yeah.
removed in a crash. How do they come back from that?
Yeah.
How does someone retire when their whole life has been nothing but police work? Suddenly you're not the club anymore.
Yeah.
How do you deal with those things? And not just, we're going to write down, have a list read off. We're going to have stories, real people who we can tell you are real people with real stories
Yeah.
to help you see that you're not alone. Someone else has been the trailblazer.
Yeah. Someone else has made it through, and they're going to be sharing how they did it.
Right.
And so that everyone can see that it's possible. There's a show that I love to watch, and it's called American Ninja Warrior. And the thing that's really cool about it is every season they'll have a new obstacle that no one's seen before. And so there's problem solving that has to go into it. There's different levels, like maybe a higher level of agility and strength and skill that goes into it. And as I'm watching the show, you'll see people fail and fail and fail at this one obstacle. They'll make it through all the others, but they get to this new one. They're just like fail after fail. People are falling into the water, right? And someone makes it. And then 2 people after that, another one makes it. And then the next one makes it. And it becomes regular that because people have seen that it's possible,
Right.
then it just opens up for people. Like,
And seeing how to do it, too.
I was just going to say that. They did it that way. Let me try it.
Or something
And
better.
then you see more people
Yeah.
doing it that way. Yeah. And so that's what's possible.
Right.
So,
And what I would like to hear from people, especially like on the Facebook page, tell us what you want, what stories you're interested in.
yeah.
And we'll find those people and we'll put them on and
Yeah.
do a couple of Facebook Live things where you send your questions in and we'll address them right then if we can. And
Yeah.
we are having an event
Yes.
on November 18th.
It's our kickoff event.
Our kickoff event, and we're encouraging people to ask us questions, and maybe we can get to them
Yeah.
during the episode.
Right.
And we haven't finalized our panel. We'll have a panel of 6. We've got 3 already. I'm just going to keep it a secret for now.
Yeah.
But law enforcement and local clergy,
Yep.
and questions. And even now you could put, if you have questions that you might want in regards to law enforcement, the judicial system, prison system, law enforcement questions. And I don't mean like violation codes and things like that,
Yeah,
but more of a personal note.
Questions that are human, have a human interest.
Right. And if you get them to us beforehand on our Facebook page, then we can actually write them up and bring them to the forum that night.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So send us messages on our Facebook page, or drop a question on there. On Facebook, it's Guardians Speak. So
right. And the event will be held at Interlight
Interlight Ministries.
in SoCal, and you can Google that address. I used to know
The
off
announcement
top of
and the
my-
address will be on our Facebook page.
Correct. And
The
it's,
address is 5630 Soquel Avenue
that's it.
in Soquel, California. And that's not SoCal.
Or SoQuel.
It's SOQUEL, Soquel.
Yeah. And it's November 18th, which is a Saturday from 4 to 6:30. And if you can come down there, we're going to have refreshments and we're going to have snacks.
Yep.
And it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going
Come
to be
and
our
get your
kickoff
snack
party.
on and get your mind open.
Yeah, and you get to meet us.
Yeah.
Hey, dog. Okay, I'm going to say good night.
Stay safe, everybody.